Okay, now it's 3:15. So let's start the next presentation. The presenter is Professor Etienne Marshall of Northern Reforming Studies. The title is English Curriculum Evolution in Japan and What Are the Impacts? Now, please, Professor Marshall, start your presentation.
Thank you very much, Nadia. Thank you. So, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get started. My background is I was an ALT in the JET program for 4 years, and I taught in elementary school, but mostly junior high school. Teaching the all levels like that gave me a good overview of the curriculum, and I became very interested in the curriculum in public schools in Japan. Knowledge of the curriculum is very useful for university instructors. Uh, for example, we understand what students know, what they can do. We also understand where our students come from, their experience with EFL classes, their experience with foreign teachers, and of course, their perception of so our relationship with them. So to me, very useful to know what the students know or can do. Goals of this presentation, understanding English curriculum and textbook evolution in Japan recently, and understanding how it affects our past, current, and future students. You should know the Ministry of Education, or MEXT, publishes every year a series of called English Education Reform Plans. And usually they are not very well received. For example, the 2013-15 series of plans were criticized because, among others, they used the Tokyo Olympics as a central motivational point for the whole country to improve English. It's criticized as not being maybe the center point for everybody in Japan. Let's look at elementary schools very briefly. In 2020, it was the biggest reform recently in elementary school. You have to know until 2008, there was no curriculum, no oversight of English education in elementary schools. From 2011, there was a sixth grade textbook and curriculum. Now this is a 2020, so third and fourth grades, it's new now. They have English classes once a week, or this is the recommended uh, frequency. The homeroom teachers is in charge of teaching the class. For fifth and sixth grades, it's been going on since 2011, as I said. Recommended amount twice a week, and homeroom teachers or specialized language instructors are in charge. Each city does their own thing. Sometimes it's an ALT, sometimes it's like a part-time English teacher that goes around, and sometimes it's just a homeroom teacher. Critiques of the 2020 elementary school reform. Professor from Shizuoka University. It's impossible to gain enough English communication skills from a weekly class. So if we have a class once a week, it's 45 minutes. You have to manage your expectations of this very limited time. At the bottom, both elementary school and junior high school, complaints around the country about the discrepancy between the next expectations and students' current levels. I will give you examples later. Let's look at junior high schools. In 2020, the big reform for junior high schools, this is not new, but essentially classes should be taught in English. The big change was a shift from a structured-based or grammar-based curriculum to a communication-based curriculum. Also, now the knowledge, both implicit knowledge are assessed in context. In context, For example, there is an article, there is a small text with questions, content questions, comprehension questions, as opposed to having just a vocabulary word and what is the definition of this word. That is the meaning of in context. 2021 guidelines by the MEXT. Elementary school should learn 6,700 vocabulary words. Junior high school, we're at 16 to 1,800 words by the end of it, up from 1,200 from the previous reform. So that's 400 to 500 words, additional words that the students have to learn on top of the shift to a communicative approach, busy schedule. So the 2020 reform is a communicative reform. However, the next experts responsible for the reform complained, fought back the complaints that some teachers don't understand how to teach second language communication. For example, some teachers think that it is the formulaic language that oil the communication in Japanese. If you know, lots of greetings, all the yoroshiku onegaishimasu, the itadakimasu, all those expressions in Japanese that are proper to Japanese that might not be used in English or not the same way or sometimes not used at all. At the bottom, example of what they mean by communication, discussing content, sharing opinions, sharing content, negotiation of meaning, giving a presentation, or writing a message. These are all examples of good communication. I will show you some textbook examples. So I decided to compare two. This is the junior high school first year textbook. On the left, sorry for you maybe here, on the left, the old version, on the right, the newest version. This is New Crown, not a sponsor. So on your left, this is the old version. This is the first few pages when you just open it before the first lesson. So you have a few examples. Thank you, you're welcome. I'm sorry, don't worry. And at the bottom, some classroom English. There is a small, translation in Japanese. If you look on your right, the newest version, a lot more example of classroom English. We went from a maybe 6 or 7 to 32 examples. There is no Japanese translation. I don't know if that's good or not. The picture is there to give a hint. And what is great, I don't know if you can see at the top right, there is a QR code. So students who are interested can access the QR code with a phone, an iPad, something, a tablet, and these are audio recording of pretty much the whole textbook. Like for everything that's written, shall we begin? Who's absent? Open your textbooks. Everything has been recorded. So a step towards learner autonomy. This is the old table of content. So you see 9 lessons. This is the whole year, first year, junior high school. It's grammar based, of course, the verb to be, how to make a statement, descriptive, ask a question, very simple. This is usually quite passive, like reading, grammar. On the right, this is the active learning part. If you look at it, we have 5 listening activities for the whole year. In fact, the first one appears on page 41. So we're almost halfway through the first year without the first listening activity. There's also talk 6 times. There are writing activities too. And let's read, these are more like learning for fun, little articles. In my experience, some teachers do it very carefully, and some teachers should choose to skip those and just don't do it because the meat is the reading and the grammar and the vocabulary on the left. The newer version, first of all, to bring your attention to the top left, starter, it's very starter heavy. We have 14, 15 pages of before we even begin. Vocabulary, communication, I mentioned before, classroom English, and also for self-study, I don't know if you can see, there is self-study opportunities. There are. So it's still grammar heavy, of course. We have 8 lessons instead of 9, but after lesson 1, 2, 3, we have a review project, something that did not exist in the old version, review activities and self-study activities. We have it also lesson 4, 5, 6, review project. 7 and 8, review project. So much more of a review of a practical use and a few self-study activities for those who are interested at least. Please note, in all lessons, there are activities addressing the 4 skills. So there's listening and speaking activities in all lessons. These are examples of lessons. On the left, the old version. This is about the plural. So there's a very short text introducing what situation and examples are 6 students, 3 girls, 3 boys, a camera, etc. Then they point out the grammar point, vocabulary, that sort of things. In my experience, teachers will copy it on the board, students will copy it in a separate notebook, and then they will explain with colors the grammar in Japanese, provide a translation, pronunciation in katakana, that sort of thing. It's very passive for the students, very focused on details. On the right, the new version, we start with the listening activity. This is a listening for meaning activity. So there are students talking, and at the bottom, you see that 3 people, Jing, Mark, and Hannah, and then the students listen and check which one applies. So where is Jing from? China or the US? So you listen to the audio file and you make your choice. So this is absolutely new to have a meaning-focused activity. Then the second page of the lesson is the grammar. They give many examples with the grammar that was used. And the third page is the reading. Okay, so this 2020 reform sounds wonderful. Communication, autonomy, active learning. So let's look at the results. Well, do I have bad news for you? The Kyodo News titled 2023 Japan Junior High School Students Average 12% correct answers in English speaking test. Even more than 60% of the students evaluated got 0. The mixed results show. So what happened here? And however, reading and listening, average of 50%. This is not a small study. This is a sample of 42,000 students. Ouch. So what happened here? Let's look in what happened. The speaking test had only 5 questions, very high stakes. The question that got the worst results, the students were asked to give their opinions on the statement of selling plastic shopping bags should be stopped. 35.8% of the students understood what they heard, but could not think of what to say. So what happened? Was it a disconnection between what students can do and what was expected in the test? Was it because teachers kept their old approach and didn't prepare the students for the test? This is what's happening. Some solutions. Active learning. Multiple studies show that students who go through active learning are more involved. We'll give examples here, students who give speeches, students who are involved in linguistic activities tended to have higher results in those tests. I understand it's difficult to do in such a busy curriculum. And in the end, does speaking matter for high school and university entrance exams? Because if it doesn't, then every stakeholder is going to focus on what is important to pass the test that matters, the entrance exam to the next step. A little side note, spending in education, according to OECD.org in Japan, spending in education as a percentage of its GDP is one of the lowest in OECD countries and partner economies. So Japan ranks at 32nd on 39 countries. Even more, from 2012 to 2020, the average annual growth in spending in education in Japan was 0%. It doesn't mean they give 0%. It's about 4.1%, but it means there was no growth. It stays the same while the reform was happening. So, in conclusion, the new curriculum is a few good steps towards a more communicative approach. Students can finally use English a bit more, maybe outside the classroom. A step towards learner autonomy with the QR code. The students who are interested can access materials and learn a little bit more by themselves. And also many more meaning-focused input, much more, sorry, meaning-focused input and output. So less of a focus on form, more of a meaning focus, a bit more natural way of approaching language learning. There is a strong dichotomy that exists between the MEXT's expectations and the students' results, which are not increasing. Possible causes include, but not limited to, lack of investment in education. With this, a lack of training and resources. We expect elementary school homeroom teachers or ALTs to be English teachers, to step up as English teachers. I think the main point of the curriculum is too busy, no time for review and practice. If you remember, 400 additional vocabulary words to learn in the same time, and possibly a resistance to change from some teachers. The MEX, the Ministry of Education, keeps adding to the curriculum despite its own data showing that most junior high school students are failing English, which was also the case in my experience. Adding to that, constant schedule reform. So every 10 years there is a major reform, and every year there are some reform plans, as I mentioned earlier. There is a lack of consensus within the mixed and their panels of experts. For example, should it be more of a fine-tuning of the curriculum or a major change? It goes on every 10 years. This is a lack of stability for teachers, not easy. Last but not least, the teachers. The teachers are busy. The people that I talk to personally and that I found interviews online, they complain that there is more administrative work and meetings than teaching. Also here by Professor of Ritsumeikan and University of Tokyo. The teachers have the best intentions. That's why they're here. They're trying their best. But in the end, it is the high school or university entrance exams that will dictate what matters. Thank you very much for your attention. Here are the references. If you have any questions.